We're excited to have you here. I'm Alex. We're at Xavier. We did a great show for you today. As always, we're presented by Emergent Financial Services. We're powered by Cristel Noel, State Farm Agent. We're going to have a great one today. Be sure to join us. Be sure to share the link.
We're going to learn about sake today,
We're going to learn about sake today. We're going to learn about Latino entrepreneurship and a lot of resources there. We're going to learn, hopefully, something about finance. I would hope it too, finance guys.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but
we'll find out.
I'm just excited about the sake part. I mean, you know how
I think
much
we were
like
tempted
that.
to just skip the opening segment and go straight to the
just
sake
go straight
this
into
morning.
that. That's right.
So make sure you join us. Make sure you share this. Tell your friends about it. We're going to have Andrew Centofante from the North American Sake Brewery. Make sure you share to your friends, especially if they're interested in learning more about sake, if they're interested in food, if they're interested in drinking.
Food and drinking.
Food and drinking, that's all you need to be
need
interested in signing on to today's show and sharing it. Be sure to comment in the feeds. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any thoughts, any questions. Let us know if you have any issues with anything that Xavier says. If I say something, don't say anything.
If Xavier says
If
something,
Xavier says
it's
something,
open.
you can
It's
feel
open for
free.
criticism.
You can feel free to tell us why he's wrong. We're going to be
Now, this is going to be good. I also look forward
to
to seeing Carolina. I haven't seen her in some time,
know,
since the pandemic. So it'd be nice to see
great
her.
member of the Forward Adelante team.
That's right. Yeah, the
in
one that's
Carolina.
always there. That's always
Yep.
she's even there sometimes when I'm not there. So that's how important she is.
She's even more loyal than the
That's right,
treasurer.
the
of Forward
treasurer.
Adelante. Just be sure to join us. We're going to go live soon.
Anytime.
We're ready. Yeah, we're ready when you are, Judah. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex Ruby. This is Xavier. We're really excited to have you joining us today. As always, we're presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel, State Farm Agent, and we are partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. Thanks so much for joining us. We have a really exciting show for you all today. It's going to be a blast, I know. Knowing our propensity for sweets and drinking that we have on this show.
I mean,
Food,
it's the essence of life, right? Eating, drinking, and having a good time.
enjoying life.
That's part of it.
Exactly. So, we're going to be joined today by Andrew Centofante. He is the owner and head brewer, also known as Koji, of the North American Sake Brewery. He's going to be joining us shortly. And then we're going to have Carolina Medina, and she's the operations coordinator at the Community Investment Collaborative, a huge resource for Latino entrepreneurs, any kind of entrepreneur in our community, the host also of the Small Business Development Center here in Charlottesville. So that's going to be a fun interview as well. So we're really excited to get to those. And of course, if you haven't been following the news, there's definitely some big things happening in the markets. I was just talking with Jerry just around 2 days ago, and there's always something new happening in the markets. And I know the latest thing was I was seeing two hedge funds.
In March, two hedge funds blew up.
Unwinding.
Exactly.
Blew up. That's a much more exciting.
That's exactly what happened.
Tell us about this explosion.
Well, the beauty about, I guess like everything else in the world, the beauty about finance, though, is that there's always something going on. And whether it be company-specific or would be fund-specific or something's going on with respect to, we even have the new infrastructure bill from the administration. How is that going to impact the markets? What's that going to do? But I think the only reason I wanted to bring this up was because I think it's important to recognize that sometimes the euphoria that occurs in the marketplace makes people do things that they should really think about before they do it. And I'm talking here about professionals. I'm not even talking about just the general, Joe.
Everyone could be tempted.
Anybody can be tempted.
Just simple behavioral.
But you would think as a professional, and especially if you've done it once and you've bundled it, right? You wouldn't do it again. But so in the case of these two hedge funds, I think one was the Greensill and the other was Archegos Capital, they have caused an enormous amount of damage to certain banks. I mean, Credit Suisse and Nomura banks, who are the ones that lend the most money to Archegos, are probably going to lose billions of dollars. And so that means their shareholders, that means that the people that gave them the money to invest, they're going to be losing the money also, right? So that's really the critical part.
When the bank is losing billions, you're losing millions.
Yeah, and the thing that strikes me is that, and again, I don't know these people, right? But the head of the hedge fund, of the Archegos hedge fund, is Mr. Wang, Hwang, I think it is, right? And a few years back, I don't remember exactly what year, right? He pleaded guilty to the SEC, right, for using, illegal tips about Chinese banks.
I mean, he pleaded guilty and then ended up at that.
So he paid $60 million, right, in fines, which means he must have made a lot of money in the first place, right? And here he is, he creates another fund, and you have banks. I mean, Credit Suisse is not a local little bank. It's a huge bank. Nomura is probably the biggest bank in Japan, right? You have these banks, and you had Goldman Sachs, you had Morgan Stanley, you had Wells Fargo. Presumably, they're saying that they got out early enough. Questionable, right? I mean, are they going to tell you that they lost money or not? I mean, they're not going to tell you that, right?
I was late. I lost millions.
But the issue is that, again, they invest in these very secretive, esoteric securities, derivatives, which they leverage to the tilt. And this is something that we talked about. We talked about margin one day, right? About how people can margin their account.
You have $100. You
can borrow 30% on that.
30% of the $100. Now I have $130.
Right.
Now you go again and say, can I borrow?
Well, especially if the market goes up, and that's what I mean by the euphoria, right? In other words, in 2020, after March 31st, the market started to go up. So of course, all of a sudden, like you said, you take $100,000 and you borrow 30. You got 130. That thing goes up to 200. Now you can borrow another 30% on that. Before you know it, the leverage is enormous. And what happens? You talked about this before, right? Mm-hmm. Markets go up like in a ladder form, but when they come down in an elevator form, right? The elevator from the large tall buildings. The Empire State Building from the 102nd.
The Twilight Zone elevator that it just drops.
That's right, exactly. So it comes down like that. So you don't have time to unwind those trades. Right? I mean, before you know it, there's a margin call. These banks said, hey, you owe us some money. And the guy's saying, yeah, well, I have to unwind these trades. Well, these trades are enormous losses. So the banks themselves have to make a decision. Do I then buy those securities from the hedge fund, right? Or do I say, no, just pay me? And they have to go out and sell it. And again, we're talking about these very esoteric, secretive derivatives that very few people know what they are or understand, and who's going to buy them? I mean, nobody's going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, I got this, I'll take it. No. So it creates these issues in the marketplace. And think about it. And if you're talking about billions of dollars being unwound at a particular day, as a matter of fact, I mean, the trades that presumably Goldman, Morgan, and Wells Fargo unwound, they unwound during the weekend. So the markets aren't open during the weekend that you and I know, right? So they unwound them during the weekend. That's how private these trades are. Private trades, right? Yeah. And so, but that has an impact on the market, because when Goldman and all these other firms are unwinding these kind of trades and they're taking losses, they're not going to open up on Monday and say, hey, we got all this cash, we got to invest. No. Mm-hmm. They themselves have to go out and do something, which means they have to go out and sell. So when you see markets with such volatility, it creates these kind of issues. Mm-hmm. There are some big winners, but there are some big losers. And those big losers sometimes have, the impact, like in 2008, 2009. The issue was the impact that all these broker-dealers had on the marketplace when they had to go out and sell all these derivatives, which at that point was mortgage derivatives, how that impacted the market was enormous. I mean, it almost brought down the financial market. So these things continue to happen.
It can have a huge impact.
Yeah. So when you see these markets go crazy, sometimes you have to take a step back. And then you and I have really discussed this. I was going to say ad nauseum, but no, it's not ad nauseum.
It's not ad nauseum.
It never is.
It's important.
That's right. It is very important. The importance of a diversified portfolio, so that you don't find yourself in that particular, sector or area of the market where this occurred, and before you know, you have securities that are dropping, 30, 40, 50%,
exactly.
right, at
It's
one day.
Diversification of your portfolio, and then just self-control in the sense of you always have to keep the long-term perspective, because you're not in this to make money quickly.
Right.
You're in this
well, you
for
shouldn't
the long,
be.
You shouldn't be.
Yeah. Not for your especially for your retirement. That's right.
There's always people I know have their play money, but for your saving money, at your long-term retirement plan, you have to be in it for the long haul, because there's just so much more potential for mistakes that are brought about by getting nervous, by panicking. I mean, you see, like we said, you see it in the professionals that they panic in certain situations. Like when things go south, it's hard to keep a steady head and actually be able to get out of these things slowly, especially when you're leveraged to the tilt like these hedge funds are. But even just for the average person, it's very tempting when things are going. When you have that stock, I mean, they know it's a behavioral pattern. When you have a certain stock and that thing is plummeting, right? The temptation is always, no, I don't want to sell it.
I don't sell it now. So I'm going to wait. It's going to come back. It's going to come back.
And then something's going up, and you're like, okay, let me take my little percent, and then you miss out on the long run. On the long run. So you just have to be calm. You have to be steady, and when you've got the diversified portfolio, you can then rebalance.
That's right.
At different times, you can move. You can realign your percentages.
And two, what's important, and again, I go back to the Credit Suisse. I mean, granted, I know that their clientele is obviously quite different than even our clientele. I mean, we're talking about multi-millionaires, right? But I'm sure they're not very happy when you go back to them and say, by the way, we invested in a portion of your funds were invested in the hedge fund, which basically just went to zero. And so you've lost, 14, 15% of your net worth, which, okay, if you own, $200 million, maybe not a big deal, but I'm sure to those guys it's a big deal, right? And the issue is, that's the other thing, is knowing who you're investing with and knowing what that person's investing in. And I think those are the two key things. Is, in other words, even if you have a financial advisor, it's not just blindly give them money and say, here, take my money, do what you want.
A good financial advisor should be able to explain to you what they're doing. I mean, if the only thing coming out of my mouth was jargon and unintelligible concepts and a bunch of complicated tickers and, well, we have this derivative that expires on this date and you don't need to worry about what's in it because it's a good investment. If that's the only thing coming out of my mouth, then there's a problem. There has to be a trust level there. And you build the trust by being able to explain to people in terms that everyone can understand what it is you're investing in. And really, for the average person, a long-term investment plan shouldn't be too complicated. I mean, it shouldn't be too difficult to explain what are United States stocks, what are United States bonds, what are emerging market stocks.
Exactly.
What countries are in emerging markets, what countries are in developed, what's large cap mean? It means a big company. What does small cap mean? It means still a big company because it's public. But a smaller company. And you should be able to understand and explain these things. And so you see even the very wealthy can get into scenarios where you're talking a hedge fund that no one really understands. Let's face it, most people do not understand
that's the
what
key.
derivatives are. It doesn't matter what your level of intelligence is, the complexity of derivatives in private placements is extremely difficult to understand. Right, so these extremely difficult investments headed by, and that's why it's always important to do your research, headed by a guy who was fined $60 million by the SEC. I mean, if you and I were fined $60 million by the SEC, I'm not sure we'd be in business anymore.
No, exactly. Well, I mean, if you look at people's ADVs, right, which is the document that you have to give people when you begin to manage their money, in the back it tells you, right, what,
any time defines your sanctions.
That's right. So it's important to read that because it's incredible how many times I've seen ADVs where people have been sanctioned or they did something wrong and they're in essence they're still in business, and I'm saying to myself, boy, if I read that, I'm saying, do I really want to invest with a guy that's really have done things that maybe weren't up and up? And the answer is maybe not, right? So again, it's what happens in the marketplace is just incredible. And the other thing that I think I wanted to touch upon, I know there was a graph that I wanted to show, which I think is the essence of what I think the United States is about, right? And what this, I don't want to say capitalism, but the concept of a free market, the concept of being able to
have opportunities to go out and
create your own
company.
opportunities, right? And it really shows that over the last, I think it's about maybe 8 years or whatever, small ownerships.
I think everyone should be able to see the.
Yeah, so we have a graph online, and you can see that over the last 8 years, I think this is, so let me take a look at it. So really since 2010, you can see how many new small businesses were created during that time period. And that's exactly what you want to see. And of course, you can see, again, you can see that
this graph ends in March 2020.
March
so
2020, that's right. And we talked about that a little
businesses
bit, yes. But, you know, again, during the recession, small businesses, right, they went down. But during the last, you know, since 2010, so 11 years, it's been going up gangbusters, and especially over the last 3 or 4 years because of everything that's occurred, at least from the perspective of taxes, right? And I think that's important. And granted, 2020 was a terrible year, and I guarantee you at least 30% of these companies may not even be in existence anymore, right? But
it shows you, I think, that the potential is there.
It is.
In the American population, and we talked about this all the time with Latino entrepreneurs, but it applies to the whole country. There is a great spirit of small business.
Yes.
And just entrepreneurship and going out there and starting a business based on your passion and the country, and you see it in that chart. Just that, I mean, there was a lot of sadness at the end of 2008, 2009 recession.
That's right.
Right, a lot of difficulty, but look how many people persevered through that and said, you know what, I'm going to start. I'm going to start my own small business. And you just see that graph take off. And granted, last year's going to be a tough year, and I'm sure, like you said, it put a dent in a lot of these small businesses. But I think that potential and that drive is still there.
And it's still there for two reasons. One of the things that happened, you and I know, was interest rates were dropped dramatically. So with interest rates being as low as they are, the ability to borrow some money that doesn't cripple your business is still there. So, again, keeping those rates low, which I think you and I talked about this. I think the Fed will continue to keep rates low. Will be very beneficial to small businesses, and we actually have a small business here.
Yeah,
don't we,
talking about passion and starting your own business. We have a great entrepreneur joining us today. He is Andrew Centofonte. He's the owner and the head brewer in Koji at the North American Sake Brewery. Andrew, it's exciting to have you on today.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, Andrew. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Yeah, so I mean, you have a great place. I mean, my brother Nicholas raves about how much he enjoyed going to.
I think he likes the sake. That's
he
what
likes
it
the
is.
sake.
Yeah. We know Nicholas well enough.
Knowing Nicholas, he absolutely likes the sake.
And then he said the food was great also.
And then he said the food was great also. So I mean, he thankfully he was able to connect us. And so I mean, the first thing I think we want to ask is like, how do you? Because I know I was doing a little look up on your website and everything. There doesn't seem to be a lot of sake breweries in like North America as a whole. So how did you first become interested in the brewing of sake?
Yeah, so we are Virginia's first and only sake brewery, which is
wow.
A great little title to have. But yeah, you're right. There aren't that many in the U.S. There's probably around 15 to 20 right now. So very few if you compare that to craft beer and wine. But yeah, I got into sake. I was fortunate enough to go to Japan about 10 years ago, and I got to have really incredible sake for the first time. And it totally changed my perspective on what it was. I think like most people, I had just had, cheap, hot,
exactly,
or like sake bomb kind of sake. And I didn't think too much of it. And then I was in Japan and got to get the full experience. I got to try chilled sake. I got to try it from a lot of different breweries and to try different styles. And it just clicked. Like, I love beer, I love wine, I love cider, and I think about them as these craft kind of places. And I kind of made that connection that sake is a huge craft. And so that kind of changed my perspective. And I came back to the U.S. and I just started drinking a lot of sake and kind of seeking out different bottles and different producers. And I'd done a lot of homebrew of beer in my past. And so one fateful night, drinking maybe a little too much sake, and I thought, I wonder if I can make that. I wonder how it's made. And so I, made my first batch at home, and then one turned into two, turned into many, and my whole basement kind of got converted, and my wife was like, what is happening here?
She was like, it's bad enough when he was drinking it, now he's making it.
But I just, the more I learned about it, the deeper I kind of wanted to go. And, it's back, obviously the Japanese culture is such a beautiful and interesting culture. The history of sake is deep. And the science and the actual fermentation of sake is fascinating. So it kind of hit all these pieces for me. And, again, looked at the market and said, oh, this might be a really interesting opportunity. And I love doing it, so I went for it.
So tell us a little bit how to make sake. So I know you say you brew it. So is it is it like beer, or is there some other function?
Sake. So a lot of people call sake a rice wine, which is fine. It's understandable. But the actual process is closest to maybe beer.
Okay.
And what I always say is, you got to give sake its own space, because it takes a little bit from everything. It's a little bit higher alcohol, so some people think it's a spirit, but it's not. It's not distilled in any way. You sip it, and it has complexity and aroma, and so that's why I think people call it a rice wine. And then the brewing process is closer to beer in that we kind of do this enzymatic conversion, and you ferment it in a tank, and then that's what you serve. So it kind of has this little pieces of everything. But it's brewed from rice, and so we steam a lot of rice. There's something really special called Koji, and Koji is kind of like our malt, if you're familiar with beer.
Okay.
But it's actually a mold. Think friendly mold like a cheese.
Okay.
But it makes all these incredible enzymes that turn starch into sugar. And so without sugar, you don't have any alcohol.
Right.
So
right.
We convert, basically break down rice using Koji to make sugar, and then the yeast eats up that sugar and makes alcohol.
That's amazing.
So I'm just curious, how are the different flavors? I mean, because I think of rice. I mean, I know there's different types of rices, but how do you, how are the flavors different?
Different bottles.
We got three different bottles. Maybe you could show these bottles.
So these are some of our bottles, just so you guys can see.
And that one is?
This is our big baby. So this is a cloudy style of sake.
Okay.
So what that means is that there's still rice in it. So it's like this beautiful white color.
Oh,
it has a nice rich texture to it, and big ricey kind of flavor. But it's interesting. So this is something I think is really incredible about sake, which really differentiates it, is that we talk a lot about this word intent with sake. So you're right, there are rice varieties, and rice varieties can, of course, influence the flavor.
Right.
But the real way that flavor is swayed is through the intent of the brewer. So a brewer will have a picture of what they want the sake to be. And then they do a lot of things along the way. How they, what rice they choose, how the rice is milled, how the koji is grown, the temperature ranges of your fermentation, the yeast that you use, how long it ferments. All these things add up and can sway flavor very greatly. And so style in terms of sake is a lot about what the brewer does. Versus with wine, you think a lot about the grape, and obviously a Chardonnay grape kind of tastes like a Chardonnay. But you can have the exact same ingredients in a sake, but depending on what the brewer is trying to do, you can have vastly different flavor profiles. So it's a really interesting brew in that way, in that it's a lot about the work and the intent and the heart that the sake brewer puts into it.
Do you grow your own koji? Is it koji?
We do. We make all of our koji in-house. We have a very special room. It's called our Koji Muro. It's a beautiful cedar-lined room. And if you come at the right time, you'll see me in there working and growing koji. But it's just a very special environment to make sure that koji is growing healthy and strong and making all these really beautiful enzymes. And the aromas that come off of the koji are fantastic. And what's really cool, a lot of people, koji, you've all had koji before. If you've ever had soy sauce, if you've ever had misos,
switching all those things.
Yeah, key ingredient to these ferments, these Japanese ferments, and really brings out what that kind of sixth or fifth sense, umami. You might hear people talk about umami, this kind of savory kind of sense in a lot of Japanese cuisine, and koji is the king of umami.
Oh, that's
It's
amazing.
a lot of really cool
I wonder
stuff
if there's
around
any
Koji.
Koji in the blue cheese and
blue
cheeses
cheese,
that you like.
You never know. Maybe some related.
That's
to
a different mold, maybe.
Maybe it's not a different
Yeah,
mold.
different
maybe
mold, but
maybe
yeah.
not quite as aromatic. I would say. Nobody really smells their blue cheese and says, "Oh yes." Let me do so. When you were dedicated to some love, Andrew. We have Robin Weatherhorn says, "Yeah, Andrew."
That's our GM. She's great.
Yuri Miyoshi says, "Hello, Andrew."
Oh, hello.
Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, Robin, for watching us. Nicholas is a big fan. He goes, "Love the North American Satay Brewery. Great satay, great food, great experience."
That's what we try to do. That's what it's about because, I think that so many people don't really understand what sake is. And so we have that opportunity to say, give them that experience that I got, luckily enough, got to have in Japan. I try to bring that as much as I can and say, you go to craft breweries and you go to wineries, like you can understand this and kind of align them better. So I think that that's a big part of what we do. Come down, get a brewery tour, get a flight, try some different flavors and varieties and see what you're into and really learn a little bit about what sake is. That's what it's all about.
That's amazing. So how do you do that? What did you have?
No, well, my question was really very simple because, I mean, as
one.
we, well, I think it's simple. I don't know. Because, as you mentioned, I mean, the experience I've had with sake, most of the time you go to restaurants is you get that hot thing, you gulp it down, and you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, because I know these are chilled, and I know that they do serve some chilled ones. Are there any hot sakes in Japan? I mean, do they actually have? So
so it's I think temperature with sake is very interesting.
Okay.
And it's misunderstood, and I think that's kind of the issues. I think most people have only had maybe super hot, very cheap sake.
Right.
And I think that the reality of it is that most sakes in kind of this modern period of sake brewing are served chilled. And I think that gives you an opportunity to kind of say, okay, this is going to be different. But there's a huge culture of warming sake, and sake temperatures can range from like room temp to kind of just like up on a scale.
Okay.
You don't ever want it to be scalding hot.
Right.
So and flavors kind of change and evolve with those temperature changes. So it's something that's fun to explore and to play with. And I would say if you're looking for a sake to warm up, you want something a little bit richer and maybe slightly sweeter. Our Real Magic, which I don't have with us right now, but it's a fantastic one to warm. But I think that if you are looking to dive deep into nuance of flavor, it's kind of like I this isn't quite a one-on-one connection, but like like a hot toddy is delicious. It's like a whiskey,
Right.
And it's warm and like it's nice on a winter's day. But if you really want to learn about whiskey, you're not going to do it through a hot toddy.
Right,
So
exactly.
I think that's kind of the same thing where it's like, if you want to explore some of the nuance and depth of certain sakes, I think starting with it chilled is a great place to start. And then as you kind of get more familiar with sake, starting to warm them and kind of play with that, it's fun to play in that area. Like what I'll do a lot of times too is I'll open a bottle of sake and my first glass will be chilled, and then I'll just leave it on the counter and kind of let it come to room temperature and see how it evolves over that period. So yeah, temperature's fun to play with, but it's misunderstood.
That does sound like
I
fun.
would think so, yes.
Yeah, we got David Sanders says their sake is so amazing. Harris Cassidy says, right on, Andrew, you keep inspiring. So definitely got some fans at the North American Satay Brewery. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.
So, I mean, one thing I wanted to ask, so, I mean, I can understand, I can see your passion for satay. I mean, it comes through just from talking to you. So how did you decide to turn that, I guess, into owning your own business, and what sort of changed? Was there anything about going into the entrepreneurship side of being a small business owner making satay that you didn't expect before you decided to go for that?
Oh, so many things. It was a big leap. It was a huge leap. And there's just so many things, you don't really know until you kind of get in there. And so I think that part of it is that, sake, like I said, there's only a few in the U.S. at the moment. And so there just aren't as many resources. Equipment, sake-specific equipment doesn't really exist. And so we had to source from a lot of different industries, both beer, wine, and other kind of adjacent things. We built a lot of our equipment by hand, like a lot of our Koji, things in our Koji room we kind of built by hand. And so there was a lot of kind of, hands-on things. And if anyone who's thinking about getting into the world of brewing and alcohol, you know, if you've ever heard this, but like brewing, you're basically a janitor. That's like 90% of what you're doing. It's like squeegeeing floors and cleaning tanks, and that's just kind of the nature of it. But you know, it's one of those things. It's exciting to be in a market that really hasn't been tapped before, but it's also difficult. You know, you have to overcome a lot. You spend a lot of time doing education and helping people understand the products that you're making and things like that. And I feel like that's part of it too. Is like I feel like my personal experience has just been you are constantly fighting these like little battles and overcoming these issues. You know, being a small business owner, something breaks. You got to fix it. You got to figure out how to get it done. It's no one else's job but your own. So yeah, it's just kind of this constant pushing, and something that we do at the brewery, both on the production side and the front of house side, in our tasting room, is just a mentality of like, if you can do 1 or 2 things a day to improve the place, by the end of the year, you've done 365 things to improve your business. So that's kind of a small goal of mine. It's like, I'm going to fix that one thing. I'm going to change this one thing. And, you know, it kind of can feel like you're not making progress, but then you turn around and go a year later, like, wow, we really did a lot. And I think that that's just a good mentality to have.
Yeah, and great advice, I think, for a lot of for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, to just sort of that daily perseverance. That how can I improve my business? How can I make it better day by day?
That's a good way to think about it, right? One little thing a day, and at the end of the year, that's right.
300 times better
exactly
than it was before.
Yeah.
Jay Berry, who looks like he's a top fan of yours. North American Sake Brewery is the best place I have ever worked, and Andrew is awesome. Dumplings are handmade, so you guys have food there also.
Yeah. So Jay is in the kitchen. He's awesome. But yeah, we hand roll all of our dumplings. And go through a lot of those dumplings. We have you know, some kind of Asian fusion. We do chicken teriyaki bowls and poke bowls. We have ramen. We'll do sushi specials. So you know, like really great kind of staple Japanese cuisine to kind of pair and go along with the sake, and kind of bring that full experience.
And do you recommend like a certain sake with a certain food?
Yeah, there's a lot of fun you can have with that, and that's kind of cuisine and sake go hand in hand.
Right.
You know, just like people talk about pairing wine, you can do the same with sake. And yeah, there are different kind of flavors and different things that you can think about. You know, like bigger flavor profiles. Like our Big Baby is, like I said, it's cloudy. It's got big flavor, big texture, a slightly higher acidity profile, and so you can pair that with like fried chicken or like pizza or like spicy Indian food. Things you normally wouldn't think of, you can do with sake. You know, our Serenity now, which is our Junmai Daiginjo, are very high quality of sake. We won a bronze medal for this at the Sake World Tasting Challenge.
Bronze medal winner.
And it's so refined and velvety in texture, and so it goes really well with like fresh fish, more like lighter cuisine.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of fun you can have with just pairing things together, and you know, the taste of sake complements food. Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow.
Man,
something else to get into. I mean,
I know. I wouldn't even have thought of.
Me neither, really.
But you instantly think of pairing it with Japanese food. Like there's so many other things.
Yeah, and you know, obviously it pairs fantastic with Japanese food.
Sure.
There's a reason for that. But I think kind of breaking it out of that mold is important. And you know, like I drink a lot of beer. And I drink a lot. Like I love craft beer and craft wine. I love ciders. I love spirits. And sake is one of those ones that I think too many times it's only drank at the sushi joint. And the reality is that once you kind of let it be its own thing, you know, I'll have a beer one night, I'll have a wine the next, and then maybe on a Thursday night I'm drinking some sake. It's just, you know, in part of that rotation. It's
tonight's Thursday, you realize.
Thursday night. Sake night. So people can find you in the Itch Art Park.
That's right. We are in the Itch Art Park, directly below Three Notched. We're kind of on that platform level where they have music and things like that. I think there's a concert on Friday that they're putting on, so they're starting to do more
wonderful.
programming.
That's great. That's great news.
They've been a really great partner to us. So thankful for them because they helped us expand our patio during COVID, which has been really helpful to kind of keep social distance and open air. And
wonderful.
So you got to check out the XR Park. they're awesome.
Absolutely. Check out the Insart Park and check out, obviously, North American Satay Brewery. Andrew, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. This has been
a lot of fun.
This is very informative and great.
And a great time. Yeah, you are fantastic.
Thank
and
you.
You're still getting the love. We have Chad Martin from New Orleans.
From New Orleans.
He was great. He had your satay shipped to him during quarantine. He's looking forward to making the trip back to Seaville soon for his art in a glass.
Yeah.
So, I can't end it any better than that.
I like that. Art in a glass.
So
like
from
that.
all over the world, join us, get some satay from the North American Satay Brewery. Thanks, Andrew, for coming on.
Thank you, Andrew.
Appreciate it.
That's fantastic. And so we're going to be joined shortly by
Carolina
from CIC. But I loved that piece of advice, because I think sometimes it can be easy, I think, as a small business owner to sort of get lost in, oh my goodness, what do I do to improve my business this
Exactly.
year? And to have big plans like, oh, I have to do this 5-year plan, this 3-year plan, this 1-year plan. But to sort of take a step back and say, what can I do today? What small things can I do today
to
make my business better?
Yeah. Being able to do that, just, you know what, and I mean, we do that on a weekly and then on a quarterly basis as to, where are we, what are our goals, what are we doing, but that the concept of every day thinking about how could I improve my business, how can I do something a little bit better, is a great idea, because, as you said, I mean, do they all work? Maybe not, but even if half of them work, that means you've improved your business by 50.
Over 150.
I mean, 180 days, 50% increase in whatever you do and making it better. That's great.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
There's so much to learn about being an entrepreneur, and so many things you can do, and so many resources out there that can help you do it. And,
Exactly.
It's an amazing thing. He was still dead in the love. Thanks you all for watching. Satay goes with everything. One of our comments from Yuri. But yeah, it's just amazing to see what small business owners can do. And we're going to be joined now with someone, who works so much with small business owners.
That's right.
In our community, and really just helps them. A fantastic friend, a fantastic member of the FABA team. We have Carolina Medina, the operations coordinator from Community Investment Collaborative, CIC. Carolina, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
It's so
Hola.
Hola, muchas gracias.
It's so nice to see you in person.
Yes, finally.
Absolutely.
It's been quite the time now. I think I haven't seen you probably for a little bit over a year, maybe.
The last time I saw Carolina, I think she had a drink in her hand, and I don't know if it was a FABA event or something, but there was a drink in her hand. It wasn't sake,
probably
but...
drink in yours, too.
Yes, I think so, yeah. Good times back then.
Good times. So, Carolina, we know you, obviously, as so much a valued member for Adelante and what you do with CIC, but for those who don't know, you haven't met Carolina before, tell us a little bit about your professional journey. How did you come to be part of CIC?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to speak about that. So I actually connected to CIC through Christelle Noel, who I think she sponsors this event, and she's a friend of mine. And Christelle and I were working at the same State Farm agency, and with Gary Albert. And when you're in insurance, you have to do a lot of prospecting. And I was new when I started working for State Farm. So Christelle was the person that sort of brought me on board, to different events and different, for me to get to know the community and business owners. So one of the, it was CIC's holiday party that she brought me to, because Christelle was part of the CIC class, which then I didn't know. And so we went together, and honestly, I was very lost at that CIC party.
We've been to that one.
They're pretty big, those.
It's easy to get lost. So many alumni and people that love CIC.
So many people that I didn't know, and people were approaching me very nicely, and they were asking me, so what class were you in, or what's your business? And I was a little bit, I'm just here with a friend, and I actually work for State Farm, and they were like, "Oh, okay, so you are not part of CIC." I'm like, "No, I guess I'm not." And, so I find that now very, very, fun story to tell because look at me, I am part of CIC. Anyway, so after that, the holiday party, Christelle and I, we went home, and then I was asking Christelle, so what is this about? Why were so many people asking me what class I am part of or what business I have? And then she explained a little bit more, and I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And I just got very interested about CIC and the businesses, the community that I saw at that event. It's great. So I looked for more information on CIC, and I was like, oh, what a great opportunity to either volunteer or be part of. Then I got to a point that in my profession with State Farm, it just didn't work out for me that route anymore. So I stepped out of that job with State Farm, and I was unemployed for, I want to say like a month or month and a half. And then this opportunity with CIC, came up, and because I had already experienced a little bit of what CIC was about, I said, well, let's try this opportunity. And Christelle was the one that once again connected me to CIC. She was the one that said, hey, CIC is hiring. This might be a good opportunity for you because I know you are in the look for another position, another career path. And yeah, sure enough, I applied. And I think having met Steven, my boss, president of CIC, at the holiday party was just good because we had already connected. Maybe Steven doesn't remember that he met me that night because he meets so many people, and all the interaction at that event is great, and so many people in there. So yeah, that's how I got. I applied for the position. I interviewed 2 times, and I was the lucky one to get the job.
I think the luck ran both ways. I think CIC was lucky.
Well, I think it's more than just luck. I mean, there's a certain talent there and charisma there that you have that I think helps enormously.
A good match.
Thank you. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I know so I serve on the board of CIC, and just I love seeing all the new things that you guys are doing there. Because there's always an amazing project. I know you're working now. You have a Spanish-speaking round table there. So, I mean, tell us about some of the things you do at CIC, some of the great work there, because there's always amazing things to learn about what CIC does.
Absolutely, yes. So, my primary role with CIC is the operations coordinator, but ever since I joined CIC, Kier, who used to be a part of CIC too, he brought me into this project that he had working more with the Latino community of Charlottesville. And of course, I was immediately on board. That's a long process for us to replicate what currently CIC is doing and provide it for the Latino community. It's honestly a tremendous amount of work that we have to do to get to that level. So, but what the baby steps that I'm taking is when they call the office and they want to speak to someone who speaks Spanish, I pass them, send them my way, because then I can work one-on-one with them. We had, and I encouraged our Latino community business owners to take the CIC workshop, even though it's primarily in English. I am always available to help them with their questions or cover the content in Spanish, translate. They do have to, put a lot of effort into it because the workshop is it is a lot of work, but it is tremendous help for them as entrepreneurs and for their business. So, but I'm always there. I'm always there to guide them or help them with homework or anything that they might need. But of course, the workshop is primarily in English. But some of the other things that I started doing was the idea of a Spanish business circle. where some business owners would come and just talk about what are their needs for their business, or for themselves as entrepreneurs. And it started going well. I started with 7 people coming regularly, and I know we all have a busy life, and especially them being business owners, there's a lot going on.
Oh, absolutely.
So little by little, it started to sort of draft away a little bit, and I decided to shift it to more like one-on-one consultations.
Nice.
When they needed something from me, they could absolutely reach out. And it ended up being that way because at the end, I would have 3 people join the circle, 2 people join the circle. So I thought a better use of everyone's time and the resources was to just have one-on-one consultations. And some of them still come to me and ask questions, or if they want any type of resource or want me to make a connection, I'm happy to do so. But for now, the circles, I would say, I do want to bring them back. It's challenging with what we're going on at the moment, and having them over Zoom can be a little bit of a killer.
Not quite the same, yep.
But I'm hoping that when we resume being in person, I can revive them. And if anyone is interested, of course, who is a Spanish-speaking business owner who's looking for extra support on any type of support, either just speaking business things, or even support for them as an entrepreneur, feel free to look on our website at cicville.org and or email me directly, and I'll be happy to tell you about it. But yeah, for now they're on hold, but I'm hoping to revive them.
What a huge resource, though, that you can do one-on-one.
Absolutely,
anyone who needs help can just contact Carolina and talk with you about in English or Spanish.
Iba a decir, quizás Carolina puede decir algo en español. Lo que acaba de decir, especialmente,
tengo unas
preguntas
en español.
Pero lo que acaba de decir es muy importante porque, en fin, estoy seguro que hay muchos negocios que necesitan esta clase de ayuda que usted le puede dar, y quizás lo que ha dicho principalmente sobre hablar uno al otro y explicar ciertas cosas de los negocios sería bueno, ¿no?
Sí, claro, no, por supuesto. Yo comentaba que con CIC es con la organización con la que yo estoy trabajando primordialmente, y cualquier empresario latino o dueño de un negocio que necesite la ayuda de cómo llevar un poquito mejor las riendas del negocio, que necesiten esa ayuda, ese empujoncito, que claro, que me contacten conmigo. Puedo dar mi correo directo, es carolina@cicville, .org. No recuerdo mi número directo, pero lo podemos tener en un momento. Pero claro, si necesitan esa ayuda, yo llevaba unos grupos de ayuda para el emprendedor. Pero por el momento, debido a lo de la pandemia, no los estamos haciendo. Pero sí puedo dar esa ayuda, esa consulta 1 a 1 si la necesitan. Cualquier cosa, si se trata de cómo sacar una licencia para tu negocio, qué permisos debes de tener, cómo me registro, la situación de los taxes. No soy una experta en los taxes, pero puedo conectarlos con alguien que sepa.
Claro,
todas esas preguntas que siempre al empezar un negocio todos tenemos, son un poquito complicadas, hay que saber manejar el sistema. Entonces, yo con mucho gusto puedo asesorarles. Esta asesoría obviamente es gratuita. Yo trabajo para esta organización y nosotros hacemos estos servicios para todos aquellos empresarios que quieran mantener bien su negocio con la documentación necesaria. Entonces, soy la única que habla español en la organización, así que pueden hablar directamente y pidan hablar con Carolina. Y con gusto estaremos ayudándoles.
Muy fácil recordar el nombre Carolina.
Sí, muy, muy fácil. Pues, y yo sé que hay muchos recursos para empresarios diversos, pero también empresarios latinos que son parte de CIC. ¿Cuáles son unos de esos otros recursos que hay en CIC para latinos que quieren ser empresarios o quizás para latinos que ya son empresarios o dueños de negocios pequeños?
Claro, sí. Pues para quienes ya fueron parte quienes ya pertenecen a CIC, y la forma de pertenecer a la organización es que hayan tomado ese curso de 16 semanas donde se les dio ayuda intensiva para su negocio, ¿verdad? Esa es la forma primordial como el empresario está dentro de lo que le llamamos nuestro network. Una vez que ya están dentro, tienen acceso a muchísimos recursos, como si necesitan capital para su negocio, tal vez ya están en otro nivel ahorita, ya están más establecidos y están buscando avanzar en ciertas áreas. Les podemos ofrecer un préstamo con muy bajos intereses y usualmente CIC da los préstamos, es más fácil obtener un préstamo mediante nosotros que mediante un banco directamente. Sí, claro, sí. Y trabajan con alguien de la organización directamente en la aplicación. O sea que somos es muy fácil trabajar con nosotros. Bueno, el préstamo está, lo máximo que pueden obtener es hasta $35,000, ¿no? También podemos, si necesitan ayuda con algo de la mercadotecnia, el marketing, consultar con algún abogado acerca de las estatutas o reglas del negocio, se les conecta con un abogado. También si necesitan ayuda con lo que es el diseño gráfico y el branding del negocio, igual se les conecta con alguien. Todos estos recursos son en inglés. Pero si necesitan que yo esté ahí o alguien más que ustedes quieran como un intérprete, adelante, se les provee eso también para que se sientan cómodos y puedan expresar bien sus dudas, sus preguntas, y ya con el experto vamos y hacemos lo que es la interpretación. Si ustedes gustan también traer su propio intérprete, adelante, también se puede. Bueno, eso es para quienes están dentro del network de CIC. Sí. Para quienes no están dentro de CIC, hay dos formas de conectar con nosotros. La primera, como comentaba, es mediante la clase, esa clase de 16 semanas que la verdad es un recurso súper importante, sí, porque les cubre todo, desde cómo empezar el negocio. Aunque ustedes ya lo tengan, hay muchas cosas que se vuelven a planear, los hace pensar, la verdad, de estoy llevando bien mi negocio o tal vez puedo explorar otras áreas de cómo hacerlo mejor. Bueno, empezamos desde ahí hasta el final de cómo si quiero contratar empleados, de dónde voy a generar para pagarles a estos empleados, cómo llevar todo lo que son su contabilidad. Todo eso se cubre, la verdad, es un curso excelente.
Y toda información muy importante.
Absolutamente.
Para tener un negocio.
Absolutamente, información súper importante para el negocio, y como les comento, no se las damos en español desafortunadamente, pero si necesitan a alguien que esté ahí dándole seguimiento para que puedan entender, aquí estoy yo, para eso estoy, para ayudar. Sí. Entonces, úsenme si me necesitan en esa área.
Aunque no está en español, está en inglés la clase. Es también una oportunidad de aprender el lenguaje de negocios en inglés.
En inglés,
porque yo sé que muchos latinos nosotros hablan inglés, pero es difícil a veces aprender el lenguaje de negocios, porque ya es difícil para los que hablan inglés normalmente, pero para latinos que vienen a este país se puede ser difícil, y esta clase es una oportunidad de aprender con ayuda estos términos técnicos del negocio.
Exacto, sí, que al final es bien importante cuando van a hacer los taxes, porque la mayor parte se tienen que entender en inglés, ¿no? Sí. Cuando un contratista va a hacer lo que es un contrato con algún cliente en inglés, toda esa terminología, esas palabras, es muy bueno aprenderlas. Sí. Y bueno, en la clase se ve todo eso, ¿no? Entonces, claro, está abierta la invitación, quien guste, pueden contactarme directamente y con gusto les doy toda la información que se necesita y los guío en el proceso de cómo ser parte de CIC, de este network que tenemos. Y bueno, sí, eso es.
It's probably, es importante también, porque lo que ha dicho es importante también, quizás puedes traducir un poquito en inglés, porque lo que ha dicho es importante tanto en español como en inglés, porque las oportunidades que acaba de decir es tan importante para las empresas que son hispanas, tanto como las empresas que son pequeñas, que no son hispanas.
We'll just repeat a little. We were speaking just about so many resources at CIC, in particular the 16-week class, which is huge. Just you can learn how to start your business, even if you have one. There's so many, how to register your business, how to get licenses, how to get the information you need, marketing advice. And they have all that.
Tax advice, getting contacted with lawyers.
They can put you in touch with consultations with people who can help you, and even in specific areas. So it's a huge resource, not just for Latino entrepreneurs, but for.
And the classes are in English, and what Carolina says, even though the classes are in English, it's Carolina who helps the Hispanics really to help them when they have challenges
with the technical terms,
exactly.
with the ways to learn the language of business, which is challenging enough in English,
yes.
let alone in translation. But I did want sort of people to know, and you can answer this both ways, in English and Spanish, just given, because I feel like you're a person with huge experience being a Latina professional, and then a person who works with so many small business owners. What would you say, if you could give one or two pieces of advice to someone who's saying, I'm thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, or I am one, but I'm not sure, I need some advice. What advice would you give to people based on your experience?
Wow, that's a great question. I think based on my experience and what I've seen, you really have to want to do it. Whatever it is that you're thinking of starting your businesses, you really have to put everything in it, because it takes a lot to be an entrepreneur. It takes dedication, it takes a lot of energy, it takes passion, and it takes discipline. So I admire anyone and everyone that has a business, because it's something that it's your baby. You want to see it grow. You want it's your legacy after all that you are trying to build and live for your family. So I think definitely really wanting to do it. You really have to think about it, because it's a long journey. And it will take a lot, but at the end, you will feel very satisfied and very accomplished. So that's based on my experience. I am not an entrepreneur. I do not have a business. I don't know if I would like to have a business, honestly. I have all the technical. Well, I think I have a lot of experience with the technical things, how to start a business, but being yourself in the business for many more years and growing it, that's another story, and that's where things get tough, right? Mm-hmm. So I really think so that you really have to want it, you have to be passionate about it, and be very, very disciplined, and put a lot of energy in. So para todos aquellos que me están escuchando y que hablamos español, si quieren empezar un negocio, es algo maravilloso, porque les da una independencia enorme, tremenda, ¿no? Uh-huh. Pero realmente, si quieren empezar el negocio, tienen que realmente querer hacerlo, que estar en ese negocio para que crezca bien y que sea exitoso, querer estar en esa área, en lo que sea que ustedes estén pensando que lo van a empezar. Tener esa pasión por lo que están trabajando, ¿no? Y ser muy disciplinados, la verdad, porque el tener ese negocio te absorbe bastante tiempo, pero a la misma vez tienes tu propia vida, tu vida social con tu familia. Entonces tienes que saber cómo llevar las dos cosas, y por eso mismo la disciplina es bien importante. Y mucha pasión, la verdad, tener muchas ganas de tener el negocio, de sacarlo adelante. Eso es algo que yo he visto porque trabajo con varios empresarios, entonces, emprendedores. Entonces, eso es lo que yo he visto que los lleva al éxito.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And you are a treasure for CIC. So this has been so good.
And what I was going to say is, when you think about it, what CIC provides is that foundation to building a business. Because as Carolina said, all that is there. In other words, you can have the passion, you can have the whatever it is you want to build. But, running a business is one thing. And, we've talked about running a business is one thing, and having a passion to do something is another. And having that foundation that CIC gives you across the spectrum, right? I mean, taxes, marketing, doing your financials, et cetera, right? Being able to have that as you grow, that becomes much more important.
It's that confidence to take it to the next level. Because you have the passion, you have the discipline.
Yeah.
And then CIC says, all right, here's... if you're worried about taxes, you're worried about this. It can be nerve-wracking when you first go into it, and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't start.
A strong foundation of your beginnings, right? You really have to set your idea and start your business with everything that you need, because you might be probably will be thinking of growing, but you realize you cannot because you are missing this important thing that you didn't think of at the beginning, right? So, and it's always, as any entrepreneur does, or business owner, is revisiting your idea, your vision, revisiting it, and tweaking it. This works, this doesn't work. So it's a lot of that, but definitely with a strong foundation on everything, on your documents, the legal side of the business, your financials. That will definitely help you tremendously as you think of growing the business.
Absolutely, yeah. It's amazing what they do there at CIC, and what how it can just help you grow to really. And I think part of the testament is just how big that alumni reunion was with that initial story. I mean, you don't have that many people that went through a 16-week program come back, be so excited to come back and be part of it, unless you're doing something amazing there. Because you're busy as a small business owner. So for you to take time and say, let me go back to the reunion of my 16-week class, shows you just how special and important that is. And
you really bond in that class. You're spending 16 weeks with this group of other entrepreneurs who are going through the same as you are. A lot of struggles, a lot of the same not knowing of things. You have the same questions, and then you see them grow. And after you graduate from the program, you see that they're now open, in the downtown mall or somewhere else in Charlottesville, and you share that enthusiasm and that happiness with them because you saw them working with you in that same workshop. So. We like that our entrepreneurs and alumni keep connected to us, because they might not need the help of CIC right after they completed the workshop, but they might need it, 3-5 years down the road when they are ready, when they have done a lot of the work on their business, and they're at a point that now they, need to reconnect again, back to those sort of beginnings, and then they can come back to us. And that's one of the things that I also, as an employee of CIC, I admire of our organization, that we help, from the very early stages to even after, right? So, and I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of people come to the holiday parties, because it's a great way to reunite and catch up, see what's going on with other people and their businesses. So.
Exactly. Well, Catalina, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun.
Nice seeing you again, actually.
I've
missed seeing you at the FAVA meetings because we haven't had any, but it's always nice to see you.
Right, we haven't had any. I was wondering, are we still having FAVA meetings? No. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. And just to remind the audience that if you are, if you're looking for assistance in starting a business, and especially if you need assistance in Spanish, I'm here for you. My email information, I don't know if we can probably
I'll
post
put it. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put it into. We can put it into the live.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And it's Carolina@cicville.org.
.org, yes, and feel free to reach out to me, and yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is great, and I look forward to see what's going on with FABA when we get, resume
When
everything
we get back
in
to normal,
person.
that's right.
Yes.
When we get back
Exactly.
to normal, we will have those great FABA events again.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, and of course, I just want to add, if you want to support CIC in any way, cicville.org. You can go there. It's a really great organization. I would really encourage people, even if you're an established business owner, I would encourage you to check it out, because you never know what assistance you might have or what assistance you can give.
That's right. Yeah.
I know they're
it
always
goes
looking
both
for
ways.
work
It's
group
nice.
leaders and people to volunteer.
Absolutely, yes.
And of course, any way you can support them. So cicville.org, Carolina at
Yes.
cicville.org.
And especially if you speak Spanish and
Yes.
are a professional in Charlottesville, and you think you can, offer your services for free to the Spanish-speaking community to start a business. Absolutely, I will appreciate that very much, and I'm sure the rest of the Latino community too. So definitely reach out.
All right,
Thank
thank
you,
you
guys.
so much.
Thank you. Y feliz Pascua.
Feliz Pascua.
Feliz Pascua a
Feliz
ustedes
Pascua.
también. Gracias.
Yes.
All right, well, that was fun.
That was good.
That's
That
a
was
lot of
good.
fun.
That was exciting. Very exciting. Nice to see Carolina, as I said again, and it was nice to learn about sake. This has been a
Yes.
very good,
This has been a
really good show. This has been-
Another really fun show on Today Mañana, and we have another fun one next week, because I know we have Francois from Revelation Vineyard. He's going to be joining us, as well as I think
That's
our
right.
friends Tripp and Martin.
Exactly. From Charlottesville Tree Service.
Charlottesville
That's
Tree
right.
Service. So
Yes.
that's going to be a fun one. We'll mix a little wine with a little bit of nature.
Yeah, and we'll see. That's right. Hopefully
Continue
not.
our drinking
As long as they're
tour
not
of
drinking while they
Charlottesville.
cut down trees, we're in good shape.
Exactly.
I'll ask them about that.
Man, I feel like we're doing it on a drinking tour of Charlottesville.
Well,
we had
you
Bebedero,
gotta-
and we had Sake
You gotta
Brewery,
blend. You gotta
Revelation.
blend it in. You gotta blend it in.
Exactly,
Like I said,
yeah.
it's the spice of life, right?
Exactly. So we want to make sure you guys don't miss it. So be sure to join us next week for that one. Thank you so much for joining us today. Be sure to share today's episode with your friends. Let people know about it so they can hear from Carolina, especially if you have Latino entrepreneurs or Latinos interested
Right.
in business. Make sure they watch it. That segment was in English and Spanish, so pass it on to them. It'll be on YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts. There's a lot of ways to find it. You can always find ilovecville.com has a lot of opportunities. TodayMañana.com. You can find all the previous shows, including today's. And so thank you all so much for joining us as always. As always was presented by Emergent Financial Services. We are powered by Cristel Noel, State Farm, who apparently not only sponsors our show, but also helps people get in touch.
That's right.
To their perfect match in the jobs industry. And as always, we are partnering with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group that will have events again, hopefully sometime soon. And as always, thank you to Jerry. Thanks, Judah, for being our behind-the-scenes maestro of the show. And thank, of course, you, the audience, for joining us. The show wouldn't be possible if
That's right,
nobody
without them. That's
watched
right.
us. So we really appreciate your commenting, your sharing. Thanks again for everyone who watched today. To Chad, to Elizabeth Cromwell. She's the president of the and CEO of the Charlottesville Chamber. She said, do check out. Apparently, they are having a virtual tasting of North American Sake Brewery and Tabarit. So check that out, business.cvillechamber.com.
Very good.
So if you really like today's show with Andrew, you can do a virtual tasting with the chamber. I believe it's the Chamber Rising Professionals Group. So that's having a virtual tasting. So I guess that you'll be able to get your sake, and then you can go on and Zoom and talk about how great it is.
What you think. Exactly. Beautiful.
Alrighty, so be sure to check that out. And thank you again for joining us. I'm Alex, as always, and this is Xavier, as always. And thank you, as always, for joining us. And until next time, we will see you. Hasta mañana.